Alright, so we have the extra long pattern, and that came about by actually just putting these guys together when I started trying to expand my playing field by putting these two guys together, and I'll show you that. Okay, here we have a diagram that is an older chart of mine where I was really just building these humongous fretboards and trying to find out what are the patterns, what's going on here. And this is where the first 7L came about. The concept of the 7L when I started it here was like a big deal. The 7L. This is the shape of that 7L right there. Okay, so what we have here is an S2L, and then we have the S2L down here, but we have the S3L here, which is shared with it. So it's not a total shape. And this is actually the S3S, I call it. It used to be stack of 3 short. So somewhere along the line here, we ended up with all this stuff, ended up with this diagram called the 7L diagram that I made. Okay, and again, we're going to square off. We have what is the C shape and the G shape there, which is the S2L or the S2C now. Okay, and then we have the other two shapes. We have the S3D right there. An S3D. Let's change the color for that. We have the S3D right here, one of them here, and we have an S3D right here. Okay, and let's just look at what we get there. So this is kind of the 7L diagram that you put these two patterns together, two of them here, two of them there, and you get this 7L diagram. Okay, now let me get my chart back up here. So what happens is, and I think I have it here, once we put those two smaller the two smaller patterns together to do that, to make the 7L, what I found then was that in the middle of it all there was this group of notes here, okay, that is like the actual stack of 3 extra long. So it's 5, 6, 7, root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's that's how I got onto the extra long pattern, and it just really bugged me. How can I use this? I have to use this. I have to be able to play this. It's just too good to be true. Like, I didn't have that much fun since I played the S3S. The S3S is this little group right here, okay, that is 2, 3, 5, 6, root 2. That's the basis for the D pattern. You can play it however you want, That's a lot of fun too. That's what I call the stack of 3 short, and that's where that idea got. That's where that idea got started. Okay, so in the present day, really wasn't that long ago. I think it was a few years ago, a couple of years ago. We have the the same thing, the 5, 6, 7, root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that was the center of that 7L, and that 7L diagram was built with these two patterns here. Now I've tried to make that 7L, I've had double 7Ls, and you know, I'd get this thing that covers essentially all 5 of the caged positions with half of A and on the bottom and half of A on the top if you do one of those double 7Ls. But the thing was going off the fretboard, and you have people on the internet saying you only have to know this one pattern, but their pattern's bigger than the fretboard. So you had to break it down into manageable segments, such as string shapes. It has nothing to do with space and strings theory and people saying that space has a, you know, something. There's something in nothing. But that's just a joke. That's like a physics joke. Anybody who knows modern physics knows that it's kind of ignorant to think there's nothing to space, because there could be something, and they just want to, you know, what that something is it's demonstrated around like black holes, where gravity's so strong you can see that space itself is curved. You know, so there's something to it, but they just haven't put their finger on it. So it's not that string theory. This is just guitar string theory. Okay, and it's also, it's not I forget what they call it. Let me think for a second. It's not digital waveguide theory. It's, you know, where you have where they've modeled strings with differential equations to create computer models of strings. Digital waveguide synthesis. It's not that J.O. Smith had pioneered in the 80s and 90s. You know, that he got like $20 million for the patent when the Japanese bought the patent from him. So that was a lot of money back then too, and so it's not that either. You know, it's not a lot of mathematics where we take a string and do differential equations on it. But originally, the way that they used to make the way they used to make the synthesizers was they just put 1/2 of a wave in memory back then in the 70s, and he also pioneered that method too. In the 70s, they were always concerned with how much memory they were going to use, so they really just stored 1/2 of a wave. It looked like an S, and when you selected a different key on your synthesizer, it would play that same wave only at a higher frequency, but then it started to sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks. So the higher notes sounded more like, you know, they didn't seem to have the luster that the higher strings would have. That's why digital wave, I think they call it digital waveguide synthesis, but I'm not sure. I'm probably getting it wrong. That's why that came about and gave synthesizers a better sound in the higher registers, you know, a more realistic sound than just stretching a rubber band, you know. So no, it's not that string theory either. It's just string shapes is the little scale fragments we were talking about. And so back to the lesson now. Sorry for that big long digression. We have the S3AXL here, and we're going to be using this pattern to play away from the fret nut when we can't use the regular string shapes. So like I talked about, there's a 1/2 of position here. And by the way, in violin, when I researched the positions of violin, which I had to redo them as double string shapes, there is a 1/2 position by the fret nut on the violin also. So to alleviate the problem there being a 1/2 position and having to play position bits up here, you know, scale bits up here, whatever you want to call them, just notes that kind of had something to do with maybe a pattern that was like this, and then you end up just with the